But Jesus said, bless those that curse you. Do good to those that hurt you. Pray for those that mistreat you.
Joel Osteen has created one of the most well-known religious empires in American history. Thousands of people attend Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas each week. Well, Lakewood Church has been gathering up controversies over the course of the past few years that cannot be contained with just positive messaging. There was a shooting inside the building. Pockets of cash stored for years were found in the walls. A federal loan that was borrowed during a pandemic without disclosure of repayment. So stay with me, because what is going on at Lakewood Church is more than just the sermons. The church that became a brand. In order to understand the importance of everything that has happened, you first have to understand how large of a religious empire Joel Osteen has built. Lakewood Church is no ordinary church. The church building served as the former home arena of the Houston Rockets NBA team, Compaq Center. The church was established by the father of the late Reverend Dr. John Osteen in 1959, in the rear of an old feed store. With the passing of his father in 1999, Joel Osteen was promoted to senior pastor and transformed the church into what the original congregation could never have dreamed it would become. In the year 2003, Lakewood Church under Joel Osteen purchased the Compaq Center and invested about $100 million in turning it into a mega-church that could seat 16,000 people. The purchase came with a debt that was a talking point in and of itself. And years later, as a moment of spiritual victory, Osteen tearfully announced that it had been repaid from the pulpit. The church's annual budget is estimated to be $70 million. Osteen himself states that he receives no salary from the church and that all of his income comes from books he has written that have sold in the millions worldwide. He resides in the mansion valued at a sum of approximately $10.5 million in River Oaks, which is one of Houston's most affluent neighborhoods that has a home value of 17,000 square feet. He is known to be a preacher of the prosperity gospel, which critics argue is a theology that links prosperity and financial abundance to spiritual devotion. That extreme wealth, combined with a message to participate in kingdom giving, has been a major subject of criticism. However, the criticisms remained mostly on what people thought about it until the real events started. And when they began, they didn't stop. Be sure to continue watching, because each layer of this story is deeper than the last. The $600,000 stolen from a safe and the cash found in the walls. Lakewood Church reported to police in Houston in March 2014 that at least $600,000 worth of church donations have been stolen from a church safe. The theft was discovered when a church employee and an off-duty Harris County Sheriff's officer spotted a break-in after Sunday services on March 9th. The amount stolen included about $200,000 in cash, $400,000 in checks and envelopes holding the credit card numbers of church members. Crime Stoppers of Houston offered a $25,000 reward for vital information. The church called the insurance company and stated that the funds were fully covered. The money was never discovered. The case went cold. Following this, in November 2021, a man hired to plumb the church for routine maintenance came to work. And when he was working to replace a loose toilet, one of the walls in the bathroom collapsed. About 500 envelopes fell out from the walls. He appeared on a local radio morning program and explained what he had discovered, and the news quickly made its way throughout Houston. Police in Houston confirmed that the evidence from the recovered checks were directly connected to the 2014 theft. The cash had been lying within the walls of one of America's most popular churches for 7 years. The church never officially contacted the plumber about his discovery, and he commented about this in public with some annoyance. Over time, Crime Stoppers made the necessary arrangements and gave the plumber the $25,000 reward the church donated to them back in 2014. All the stolen money in 2014 was not recovered. Police stated the money discovered in the wall had not been taken from the church, and the investigation into the crime was to be continued. No one has ever been charged in public regarding the theft. The most bothersome question that lingered like a dark cloud was an easy one, but no one had a clear answer to it. Who placed the money in the wall of the church? Why didn't they ever return for it? KHOU's reporting from the discovery explained the entire story of the 2021 discovery and how it was tied to the original 2014 theft. The answer to that lingering question has never been proffered. And while Houston police have been working on a case that dates back 7 years, Lakewood Church was soon to be found in the middle of a totally different kind of national controversy. The pandemic loan Lakewood said they didn't apply for. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck in 2020, the federal government initiated the Paycheck Protection Program to help businesses keep employees on their payroll. Lakewood Church applied for this program and was awarded $4.4 million by the Small Business Administration through the federal government's Paycheck Protection Program in order to be able to keep employees on the job. The loan was approved on the 21st of July, 2020. The church stated that it made use of the money to pay the salaries of 368 employees and also offer other benefits, and further mentioned that neither Joel Osteen nor his wife, Victoria, were receiving the money directly. What Joel Osteen said in a video before knowledge of the loan was made public became the problem. In an interview, Joel Osteen mentioned that Lakewood Church would not apply for or accept no government funds, presenting it as a point of principle. The contradiction in his claim became obvious when the SBA information was released in the records and Lakewood Church was found written in bold. The press didn't hold back. The Houston Chronicle reported the story. It was picked up by the national media. This was bad for a church that rests strongly on the preaching of financial blessing and divine abundance, and whose spiritual leader openly claims that he needs nothing from anyone else except God. Later on, Lakewood announced that repayment has been processed and the cancellation of the loan. The church portrayed the repayment as a responsible choice. This, however, did not stop some critics who noted that it's not the same to pay back borrowed money only after having been caught, as it would be not to take any money in the first place. This particular incident marked another in a series of instances in which the church's current public image differed from the known historical image at Lakewood Church. That difference was far from insignificant for a ministry that sought to function on trust and transparency between the pastor and his people. Financial watchdog organization Ministry. Watch rated Lakewood Church an F rating for transparency, giving the religious organization a donor confidence score of 3 out of 100. That score placed it in the bottom percentage of the nation's large religious organizations for the most non-transparent scores. In the past, the church has never released a detailed budget of income and expenditures to its members, which means that its yearly $10 million+ in expenditures are largely unaccounted for to those who give to it. The money that went missing, the hidden envelopes in the bathroom walls, the pandemic loan contradiction, and the failures in transparency. Individually, most of them could be accounted for. But collectively, they began to create a mental image that the observers could not ignore. Then something happened that brought federal law enforcement right onto the premises in a way that could not be explained otherwise. The FBI arrives at Lakewood Church. On February 11th of 2024, Janice Yvonne Moreno, a 36-year-old woman, walked into Lakewood Church with her 7-year-old son during the service. She was in a trench coat and carrying a backpack. She confronted a security guard outside the building, threatened him with a weapon, and forced her way into the building. On getting to the hallway, she opened fire using an AR platform rifle and delivered approximately 30 rounds, according to federal law enforcement sources. During the rounds, she shot a 47-year-old man in the leg. The shooting that ensued resulted in her little boy being critically injured. 4 minutes after Janess Moreno was inside the building, 2 off-duty officers performing security at the church, one a 28-year-old Houston Police Department officer and another a Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission agent, returned fire on Moreno and ended up killing her. Before her death, Moreno had claimed to be in possession of a bomb, which was in her backpack. On searching through her backpack, criminal investigators found rope that resembled detonation cord and material that matched the composition used in the manufacture of explosives but did not provide a working bomb. Also, an AR-15 was discovered with a sticker on it that read Palestine, and there were signs of anti-Semitism in the investigation. Following this discovery, the FBI was later summoned to help with the case. The involvement of the FBI was confirmed the next day by Douglas Williams, the special agent in charge of the FBI's Houston office. He said they're still in the early stages of the investigation, and we were yet to figure out what they think might have been her motive behind the shooting, or figured out how she got to obtain her weapon. She had a legal AR-15, which she bought in December 2023, a few weeks before the attack. Her former mother-in-law had for years tried severally to inform the church and alert the authorities of documented signs of mental illness and a diagnosis of schizophrenia in Moreno. Unfortunately, Texas didn't have a red flag law that would have provided the authorities with a means to intervene. The shooting in February 2024 left the church community stunned and prompted serious questions about the safety measures at one of the largest churches in all of America. The church, which has an annual budget of $70 million, the converted NBA arena, and thousands of weekly attendees, was breached by one person who was diagnosed with mental illness and who had legally bought a military-style rifle weeks prior. Joel Osteen, who was in the building but on a different floor, said the church was devastated but would be strong, and that they as a body would continue to move forward. On its own, the shooting was already a hassle, putting the church in a bad light. Not necessarily that the church did a bad thing, but that the church was a target and unsafe. When put together with every other incident that had earlier transpired, we have a string of bad things that leave Joel Osteen's church in the spotlight for all the bad reasons. The question then follows, what does all of these incidents lead to and mean in the bigger picture? Well, stick with me, as that is exactly what I'd like to connect and explain to you next. But all of this says about Lakewood Church. Each of every separate incident at Lakewood Church has been made to have its own explanation. The 2014 money crime was not a crime committed by the church, but a crime committed against the church. In 2021, the cash discovered in the walls gave the indication that there was an inside job, but nobody ever was charged for it. The Paycheck Protection Program loan was secured and later paid back legally. The shooting at Lakewood occurred when a church outsider with a well-documented history of mental illness perpetrated it. So it seems that none of these things actually implicated Joel Osteen or insinuated that he was involved in any type of criminal wrongdoing. But while the individual cases could be explained away, their pattern when considered together is more difficult to overlook or dismiss. A theft of $600,000 that was never resolved for years, and then later uncovered as the church's own secret, found within its own walls. The public denial of the senior pastor for borrowing government funds, followed by unrefutable proof that it did take such government funds. They also received the lowest possible rating of 3 out of 100 from an independent watchdog. They received an agency of the federal government tasked with investigating a mass shooting at their location. A civil suit was filed by a volunteer with him, claiming that he was negligently treated, poorly trained, and that evidence was not secured, and sought $10 million in damages. And furthermore, a man who threatened the church that he was going to release sarin gas during a Christmas Eve service, but was federally indicted. After putting all these into consideration, the result we get is an unavoidable picture of a massive, rapidly expanding institution that has been poorly held to account and has had a lot of serious incidents to deal with, but has never been compelled to confront them in a sustained public manner. Each controversy makes the popular headlines for a few days and is then followed by a smile and a message from Osteen to move on, have faith and trust in God's divine plan, and the entire moment is ignored. The fact that Lakewood Church could fall into all these controversies and emerge from it without suffering any permanent harm is a vital part of the story. Megachurches, as they are called, exist in a special niche within the institutional life of America. They are tax-exempt. That is, they are not required to pay federal income taxes on their revenues. They are also not obligated to disclose audited financial statements to their general congregation, unlike publicly traded companies, which are mandated to disclose financial statements to company shareholders. They are often subject to much less regulation than similarly sized organizations in other sectors. With all these, the end result is a collection of institutions with the capacity to gather a vast quantity of funds, manage it with very little oversight, and have very little legal liability if things go wrong. Lakewood Church is the most obvious representation of these dynamics in the country, and the controversial events of the last several years have rendered it a jarring reality. The probe of the FBI into the 2024 shooting in Lakewood Church brought the church building under the control of federal law enforcement in a manner that was very difficult to explain away. The cash in the wall story was so bizarre and strange that it was impossible to downplay the church's public relations or neutralize it with hope-filled messages. The Paycheck Protection Program contradiction got to stay because it was well documented, verifiable, and went directly against the statement that was made by the senior pastor on camera. In all these, a key element to focus on is the machinery of the broader culture that makes it all possible. Joel Osteen is not just a pastor. He is not just a religious institution, but a brand, a media platform, a publishing house, and a motivational platform. He has sold tens of millions of copies of his books. His TV show is broadcasted in more than 100 countries. He has several million followers on social media. The Lakewood Sunday service is not a church service, but more of a production. This infrastructure does not only support Osteen's presence, it shields him from it. In case of conflict, it's taken in by a machine designed for reach and repetition. Bad news can go on for days. A sermon by A. Osteen, a book quote, or a post on Instagram reaches millions of people within hours and sets the emotional tone of his audience almost instantly. Those who occupy those seats each Sunday aren't coming for the reasons of having looked at the church's financial documents or its independent watchdog ratings. They come because the message invades their consciousness and elicits a feeling in them, and that feeling is real to them, not just the message in itself. This isn't a Lakewood phenomenon, but it is the most obvious one in Lakewood. A self-reinforcing dynamic is created by the prosperity gospel Osteen preaches, which emphasizes that material wealth is the fruit of faith, and that God is all out for the abundance of His people. If the church flourishes in the provision of funds, then it is a sign of favor from God. When there are disagreements, they are described in spiritual terms to be overcome, not as failures of the institution to be investigated. The theology itself is a protection. The setting in which such a shield can most easily remain intact is quite possible in this country, where religious freedom is afforded by the Constitution, where megachurches have a relatively unfettered financial environment, and where tens of millions of people feel comforted by that message. Regardless of these controversies, there's yet to be any criminal investigation into Joel Osteen, any discovery or finding of financial misconduct against the church, or any action with the potential of slowing down the church in any way as of the time of this video. The doors to Lakewood are open, the services still continue, and the donations are still flowing. Whether this proves the power of genuine faith as taught by Joel Osteen, or the endurance of a carefully managed business system, depends on one's prejudices or view concerning the personality of the man behind the pulpit. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.